Hi there, my name is Gabriella Delia. I am the current Vice President for the Mushroom Society of Utah, Director for Fungal Diversity Survey, North America's only nonprofit for fungal biodiversity and conservation, and I am the project leader for MSU's very own community science project called Northern Utah Funga. I know that some of you have already contributed high quality observations to our project. And I am excited to talk with you today about how you can help fungi in Utah. I am from Utah, born and raised, and am so happy that all of you are going to experience a wonderful MSU Fall Foray 2022. Unfortunately, I'm not able to join you all this year, but I would still love to participate in just sharing some, I think, valuable pieces of information with you all. So I'm going to share my screen as though we're on a Zoom and you can see this presentation. Let's see. Cool. So you should be able to see everything. Awesome. So this is just going to be about a 15-minute long presentation on how you can help fungi in Utah. I'd like to really just cover two main topics today. First, how to contribute to community science. And second, Porcini, the campaign for Utah's state mushroom. So the easiest way to help fungi right now is to help document their distribution across North America. There's an estimated 5 to 11 million species of fungi that might exist throughout the world. And out of all of those species, we've only named or described about 5% of them. So there's a lot of discoveries just waiting to happen. And we really don't even know who is fruiting when or where. So the most help that you could do is to help us document fungal biodiversity, especially in a place like Utah, where Utah has just been more, is more of an underdocumented place for fungal biodiversity. So the easiest way to help us document is to use an app called iNaturalist. iNaturalist is also a website, but you can download this app on your phone. So if you haven't yet downloaded iNaturalist, I would recommend doing so right now while you have internet access before you go out into the field for the weekend foray. So if you look up iNaturalist on your phone and press download, then you can create a free account. This app is accessible on smartphones, and you can also access the interface on a website or on a computer through a website. There's kind of different components. I find it really valuable to go on the computer and go on the website version of iNaturalist in order to do certain tasks, but you can go into the field and use the app while you're in the field and upload high quality photos to the app right on your phone, which is very easy. So iNaturalist is a database, an open source database that collects biological observations from across the world. So you can add any kind of observations of biodiversity, whether it be trees, species, or insects, or even just kind of like common. You can upload a photo of your house cat and see if it can define a species for you. But we use this open source database because it's so easy to use. Anybody can access it on your phone. And you know, the intention of creating a high quality observation and sharing it through iNaturalist is not really to get your observation identified, but to share your high quality observation on a database that anybody can access. So while you can add your observation to INAT, and INAT for short, INAT can provide a recommended ID to the organism you're looking at. There's algorithms that are constantly self-improving on iNaturalist, and a component of this tool is that iNaturalist will provide the most accurate ID that their AI can provide. And so that's actually that's a plus, that's a bonus to iNaturalist, because really the intention if you're creating a high quality observation, is to share your observation with an open source database that anybody can access. So once you've downloaded the app on your phone, you want to search for the projects that are important and that you're going to be a part of. There are thousands, if not, there are probably hundreds of thousands of projects on iNaturalist. And the ones that we are working with in Utah for MSU are the Northern Utah Funga, NUF for short, project, and the Fundus Biodiversity Database. So you can search for the projects, Northern Utah Funga, press that project, and then press join. And then also search for the Fundus Biodiversity Database project and press join. So these two projects, you have to intentionally add each observation to the project when you create an observation on your smartphone. And I know that Ashley and some people who were there this weekend can help people walk through that process if they need the extra, if they need the steps laid out to them. But our intention behind these projects is that we're not collecting just any fungi observations that people make on iNaturalist. We want intentional observations that have conservation and scientific value, high quality observations that will help science and conservation by providing valuable metadata. I don't want to shame people with lower or poorer quality observations, because we've all been there, and sometimes some of our observations are not of high quality. But we don't really want to see a picture of a mushroom from like 15 feet away, just showing the top of the mushroom. That's not the kind of data we're looking for. I'll get further into what exactly makes a high quality observation soon. But so each time you make an observation on your smartphone, I really encourage you to add your observation to the Northern Utah Funga project if it's within Utah, or if it's across North America, please add your high quality fungal observations to the Fundus Biodiversity Database project. This is a North American wide conservation effort. It's a project that uses this data for scientific research and protecting fungi and their habitats. So any and all data, especially if it's high quality, is going to be very helpful. So to make scientific collections, making scientific collections is another way that you can help us. The first that I had just spoken to is creating observations, which usually are just really high quality photos of the mushrooms that you're finding. A second way of helping us is actually collecting the mushrooms and bringing them home and drying them and storing them so other people can either do research on them, or you can do DNA testing on them. Our NUF, Northern Utah Funga Community Science Project, sent in 30 specimens to be sequenced last year, which we received the DNA analysis for, and I will probably be making a short educational video throughout the winter to discuss those findings. But making scientific valuable collections is another way that you can help by actually retaining specimens. So if you want to just add observations on iNaturalist throughout the weekend and as you continue mushrooming, that is wonderful and that helps us a lot. But if you want to make the just the extra step and actually collect your mushrooms and dry them at home, I'll be talking about that as well. So when collecting macro fungi or mushrooms, macro just meaning large and visible with the naked eye, when collecting mushrooms for science, try to follow two simple tasks. Number one is make good collections, and number two is collect good metadata. So whenever you are collecting a mushroom, you want to have a field data slip or some kind of ID number associated with the collection. And taking a picture of the mushrooms with the field data slip is pretty essential. This is all part of making a good collection and being able to collect good data on the collection. So when you're creating a good collection, there are three main points to remember. Find a good representation of the species. 2, dig, don't pick. And 3, keep specimens separate. So number one, find a good representation of the species. Just really means we're not looking to make collections of just one mushroom. We really make collections of usually at least 3 mushroom fruit bodies. And a good representation of the species takes into account all ages. So having a baby mushroom, a middle-aged mushroom, and an older age mushroom in your collection is going to be valuable. Number 2, dig, don't pick. we don't want to pick the top of a mushroom off and leave the base of its stem or its stipe, as what we call the stems for mushrooms. We don't want to leave the end of the stipe in the soil, because the very bottom of the stipe, see, if this is a mushroom, the very bottom of it can actually provide a lot of really valuable information on who the species might be. So we really always want to make sure that we take our mushroom knife, which I'm going to just use as this pen, and pop up all of the mushrooms from the substrate or the material that they're growing from. We don't want to pick the mushrooms up. We want to get a little too much of the mushroom fruiting body. It's better to have some of the mycelium, some of the soil, some of the substrates still connected to the fungus, rather than removing some of the mushroom from itself. So, and then number 3 is keep specimens separate. When you are out collecting, we definitely want to make sure that each collection of mushrooms either goes into its own paper bag, its own wax paper bag, or into a compartment of a tackle box or another form of keeping specimens separate. Tackle boxes are really great. I hope that some of you see some tackle boxes around this weekend. We also use wax paper bags or paper bags so mushrooms don't sweat. We don't want to be putting mushrooms into plastic bags, or else they'll kind of start to rot and sweat themselves into oblivion. And by the end of the day, it just might be more of a mushroom mash than any mushroom specimens. So essential metadata to collect when you're making mushroom collections. So in other words, information that must appear on your field data slips or somewhere on your observation. I will say that field data slips, I'll go back to this first picture. Field data slips are the easiest way to go. You can download field data slips for free on the Fundis website, which is fundis.org. And you can print these out. And I always have dozens of field data slips in my car whenever I might go mushrooming or find a mushroom on the side of the road. So important information, important metadata to get for your collections and to put on these field data slips is the INAT ID number, which you will get once you upload your observation to iNaturalist. I'll go over that in just a second. The other important information is who, so usually your name, your first and last name, please, when, the date, and where. We want any kind of state, county, and city locality as close as you can possibly get, so that somebody would be able to find your collection again in nature and replicate where you found it. So latitude and longitude coordinates are the most helpful. And how to put all of this on your field data slip mostly is the easiest to do after you put the observation on iNaturalist. So after you've put your observation on iNaturalist, you can access the iNaturalist observation on your computer, or if you have an Android phone, the app is a lot easier and it's more filled with all of the tools to use. But if you're accessing the app on your smartphone, then I would recommend going on to the website interface on a computer and doing these steps. So to find your iNaturalist ID number, you go to your recent observation, you click on it, and the iNaturalist ID number is going to be this number in the link right here. So you want to make sure that this number is associated with your collection and your collection label. So after you upload your observation on here, you want to, there's a second step of taking this ID number and writing it down on your collection, your field data slip that stays with the collection. We passed over this image by accident, but this is just an example of what is a good collection. We have mushrooms of different maturities. We have younger ones, a little bit older ones. We definitely want at least 3 mushrooms if we're making a collection. Some exceptions include Lepiotas or other taxa that might fruit as a singular specimen. But usually we really are looking for at least 3 mushrooms to make a collection out of. This is really so that we have enough mushroom material to conduct microscopy or send some of the specimen in for DNA analysis if wanted. So again, this is the information. Please collect this if you are collecting mushrooms for scientific study, the INAT ID number, who, when, and where. This is an example of photos that make a really high quality observation. So we have a photo of the specimens with some still in the ground with the field data slip. So the field data slip will include a temporary ID number right here, which that can be associated to the collection until you go home and go on iNaturalist and then transfer the INAT number to the field data slip, which there's a slot for right here. We have the date, we have who collected it, we have the location, and we have a species name, or at least a genus, and that's totally okay if you don't know what you're looking at in the field. That is like most of the time that I'm in the field, I have no idea what mushrooms I'm looking at, but it just depends on, it more relies on making good notes and taking good photos, taking good observations. An observation is a work in progress. And even if you think you might know the species that you're looking at in the field, you might come to a different conclusion once you're looking in an ID book, or you might come to a different conclusion once you run a DNA test on it and find that it's actually a totally different species. So we're not super concerned with knowing the species while we're out in the field. We're the most concerned with taking good field notes and good photos and good metadata. So we have, this is a necessary photo when you're making a collection, is getting a photo of the species, of the specimens with the field data slip. Next, you really want a photo of a more close-up view, a more close-up angle of the specimens, so that you can see, oh, there's this kind of, there's decurrent gills, there's widely spaced gills. You can see the texture on the stipe. Good close-up shots are wanted for these iNaturalist observations. And then third, getting a habitat shot is actually really important. This way, researchers and conservationists can look at the kind of habitat that these mushrooms are growing in. This case on Mirror Lake, these mushrooms were just growing right off the side of the boardwalk. So there's plenty of important information. We can also see the kind of, I think, probably lodgepole pine and maybe some Engelmann spruce that are growing in association with this specimen based off of the habitat photos. So these 3 photos in total would go into one iNaturalist observation. You can select multiple photos and include multiple photos in one iNaturalist observation. And I do want to mention that we don't want multiple iNaturalist observations for the same collection. If one person is making a collection of these Laccaria specimens, please have just that one person upload an observation onto iNaturalist, or somebody. But as long as it's just one observation, we don't want duplicate observations. That just gets a little bit more confusing. So once you've collected, once you've been out, you're going to be out throughout the whole weekend and have a really beautiful time. I hope you all find fascinating specimens. It's been a really rich year for rain and monsoonal rainfall. So I hope you all find really incredible specimens, and you all might be finding some species that aren't always going to be fruiting since we've had so much rain this summer. So you might be finding more rarer or underdocumented species. Once you come back into civilization after being at the foray over the weekend, or if you do have some dehydrators at the foray over the weekend, you can get a head start on drying your specimens, because we want to dry specimens for scientific research. That's how we store them. So to process your specimens, when you're done from the field, you dry them using a dehydrator. And the easiest way to do that is to keep your specimens organized on the dehydrator. And with field data slips, you can either draw your ID numbers on a piece of tape and tape them next to your specimens, or our fundus field data slips have these really handy areas, these little corners right here that you can cut off and paste onto near the specimens that you're drying. You want your specimens to dry at the lowest temperature as possible, which is usually around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is so that your specimens retain their DNA. If the DNA gets damaged by being drying at a too quick pace or too high of a temperature, the DNA gets degraded a little bit, and we want to preserve that DNA, because one of the coolest things you can do with saved specimens is send them in for DNA sequencing. Drying specimens in Utah in the Rocky Mountains doesn't take as long as it might in more humid places like New York, but you want to make sure that your specimens are cracker dry or cardboard dry. It usually takes a day or two in Utah. And once your specimens are dried, just place them into a plastic bag with their field data slips and include some desiccant pouches, which you can buy really easily on Amazon or on different websites. The desiccant beads or desiccant pouches will help keep the specimens dry while they're packaged, because the last thing you want to do is have really valuable, wonderful specimens that you put into a plastic bag, and a year later you go into your plastic bags and you find that there's mold or they're all rotted. So we really want to make sure that we save our specimens in water-safe containers as well, and keep them maybe in large Tupperware bins or places where they can be safe. So now I'm just going to give a few more examples of some high quality observations before going to my second theme for the talk. So this is a community scientist making sure that we get the underside, a good photo of this Phalinus species, getting all up in there and getting good close up shots of the underside of this conch mushroom. This is an example of just remembering to put the specimens with the field data slip, not only so that we can track the specimen to an ID number, but we also get a reference for size. There's a ruler on the side of this field data slip, which can be very important, because without that, it's pretty difficult to tell the size of a mushroom based off of the photo. Oh, we're just fast forwarded a lot. Here's an example of a high quality photo that shows the top side of a cap as well as the underside of the mushrooms, showing these rusty brown spores being deposited on the stipe, showing the shape of the base of the stipe, even some mycelium still connected, some soil, some substrate that it was growing on. This is a great example of, without this stipe, this base of the stipe, we would be missing out on a really big key ID factor. This is a huge, very noticeable shape. And without seeing that, if we only got the top of the mushroom, we'd be missing out on, we wouldn't know, we wouldn't be able to ID the mushroom. We wouldn't be able to know that the base of the stipe had this big bulbous shape. And that's really important when it comes to mushrooms and what they look like. This is another example of a good collection that sometimes cutting a bifurcation, cutting a mushroom in half, is really important for different species. This is also another example of a DIY field data slip that, as long as you have a number and kind of a measuring system that can reference size, you don't have to use a particular field data slip. But once again, Fundis, fundis.org, provides free field data slips to use. And community science is fun. We have a lot of fun. We get to be together and ask our own questions together outside in the field. So I hope that all of you, I hope that some of you make high quality observations over the weekend, and that even another section of you makes collections and takes home some species, try drying them yourself, and try keeping them in your own personal fungarium, or your macro fungi storage area. Once you have those specimens all saved and dried, please keep them, because we might have other rounds of doing DNA sequence for those specimens in the future as a part of our MSU Northern Utah Fungal Community Science. So next, for the second part of my presentation, I would like to talk about a very special mushroom. I hope that some of you are able to recognize this mushroom already. But these are porcini. This is a porcini mushroom. And with a very special audience today, those of you who are participating in MSU's 2022 Fall Foray, maybe you've already heard people whispering and sharing stories about this. Maybe you've heard Chandler and Ashley and Katie all talking about our plans for the Utah State mushroom. So let me just do something on here. Okay, so the Utah state mushroom. Porcini is the mushroom that Utah should have for its state mushroom. Did you know that Utah does not have a state mushroom? I know, right? Pretty incredible. We have a state winter sport. We have a state insect. We have a state folk dance, but not a state mushroom. So some of us at MSU are really spearheading this campaign for a state mushroom. And we think that porcini would make the perfect candidate. Porcini, otherwise known as Boletus edulis, that's its Latin name. So given Utah's wealth of biodiversity and natural resources, and that fungi are essential to maintaining biodiversity, it is time that we champion them. Let's recognize one of life's major kingdoms and declare porcini as Utah's official state mushroom. Fungi make up one of life's kingdoms, as broad a category as animals or plants, but they are substantially less known than those kingdoms. Less than 5%, as I mentioned before, of fungi species have been described. It's a very timely and innovative thing to be adding state mushrooms to state symbols. There's only about 5 states right now that have state mushrooms. California just recently passed off the golden chanterelle. New York is working on Lactarius peckii. Illinois as a Illinois has chosen penicillium, which is like a mycelial, our penicillium species that has saved over 200,000 lives. It's pretty important right now to be including fungi in our state symbols, because our language matters, our representation matters, and for fungi to be so left in the dark for hundreds of years, it is very important for states to be claiming a state mushroom to increase fungal representation and to increase more people to be learning about mushrooms, especially in schools or universities, and to increase just general awareness for the importance of fungi and how we can better protect and steward them. So the porcini mushroom, I hope that you all find, and please, if you are out and find some porcini mushrooms, take good photos of them and send them to me. You can email me at gabriella@utahmushrooms.org. I'm always looking for good, fun photos of people out finding porcinis because they're so beautiful, and we can use them for our campaign if you are open to that. So the porcini mushroom is also known as the penny bun, and because it kind of looks like loaves of bread as you stumble across them in the forest, and you can see kind of some representations of that here. They look like just loaves of bread laying down there on the forest. And they get huge. These mushrooms are such beautiful representations of all of mushroom biodiversity, because we have exquisite specimens here that grow right in our backyard in Utah, and not that many people would even know about them. But we in fact do have incredible Boletus edulis specimens that grow, and they get huge here. I mean, this mushroom is like bigger than my own head. And so not only are they important signifiers for forest health that I will get into in just a moment, but they're just beautiful mushrooms. I think that the critical importance of fungi and the planet is receiving widespread attention right now. And the way to really make our words matter politically on a larger perspective is very much so giving state mushrooms, is allocating state mushrooms right now. So porcini mushrooms are beautiful and delicious and edible. Maybe you'll get a chance to eat some porcinis or take some home with you and try them out yourself. They grow abundantly in the Wasatch Mountains, including along the Wasatch Front, Uintas, and in the montane coniferous forests throughout the central and southern regions of Utah. There are plenty of porcinis that actually grow in the Aquarius Plateau in the southern part of Utah. So these mushrooms do grow all across Utah. Porcini are one of the most prized wild edible mushrooms around the whole world, and we are lucky enough to have them growing in our own backyard. Look at them. I mean, don't you just, they're so flavorful. I'm starting to make porcini steaks because, people are doing like cauliflower steaks, and why not just make thin strips of mushrooms and treat them as a steak, and with some parsley and lemon and butter on top, salt, it's perfect. And then collecting wild porcini in Utah mountains is a favored pastime for many Utahns. And recognizing this alongside the many other outdoor activities Utah is so well known for would further enrich our state's reputation as a wilderness paradise. I mean, look at this. People get so excited when we find huge porcini outside. It's infectious. It's an infectious mushroom. Porcini are mycorrhizal, meaning that they form an obligate mutualistic symbiosis with plant roots, providing essential nutrients and water from the soil in exchange for sugar. And so this ancient and ubiquitous relationship allowed plants to first colonize land, and today is the primary symbiosis supporting our forests. This essential partnership makes Utah's mountain forests more resilient, and this will be a critical factor as our state's ecosystems adapt to a changing climate. This is why Utah should acknowledge this fundamental and critical collaboration by nominating porcini as the official state mushroom. Porcini are noteworthy because they serve a vital role in maintaining a healthy and vibrant forest ecosystem through its symbiotic partnership with subalpine fir, Engelmann spruce, and other conifers. Up to 50% of the living biomass of soils are fungi, like porcini, that form these mycorrhizal networks. So these networks play a crucial role in improving nutrient exchange, sequestering carbon, and balancing ecosystem health, connectivity, and regeneration. The presence of porcini is an indicator of forest health and forest fun, and its recognition as a state symbol may instill greater awareness of the health of our forests. So it's time that we recognize the central role of fungi that they have in Utah's unique biodiversity and declare porcini as Utah's state mushroom. So if you are interested in helping us carry forth this campaign, we've got a lot of really inspiring and passionate people involved. So please send an email to chandler@utahmushrooms.org. And I am excited to hear what the conversations, what happens with the conversations around the foray this weekend. And I hope that you all have really connective and inspiring conversations about this stuff throughout your weekend. So in closing, I just want to say that your observations make an impact, and that it's pretty typical to stumble across a mushroom that has not been described, that is new to science. So thank you all for wanting to help fungi in Utah, and I hope to connect with you all soon about the topic. So thanks for adding your high quality observations to our projects. Thank you so much for attending MSU's Fall Foray, and I hope to see you all soon. Go Porcini!